Who do I call if it ain't you? Tell me who to call if it ain't you.
Hey! What's up, girl? How are you?
Hey! What's up?
You got your wine tonight?
Yeah, I do. Although it's actually in the other room, but right now I have a reusable water bottle, so that will do.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's like 9:30 here in Copenhagen, and I've been drinking. So.
Good. It's 12 o'clock, but you know, we haven't started here.
That's what... Oh, someone's bringing me some wine, actually. That's really nice.
Oh,
my boyfriend's just bringing me some wine.
Cute. What a good one. Yes, there we go. How's your quarantine been?
It's been okay. So here in Denmark, things are way better than lots of places. So I'm feeling really lucky, and yeah, we kind of like started the whole corona crisis a bit earlier than places like the US or even the UK. So yeah, we just kind of like got down to it, and things haven't been that crazy. So I'm feeling pretty lucky.
Yeah.
And yeah, things are kind of slowly getting back to normal here, actually. So some of the schools are opening, and some of the shops, and like everyone's having their hair cut this week and stuff. Things are opening up again. So
I need one soon.
Yeah, I actually cut my own hair for the first time in my life a few weeks ago. I've never done that. I've got really long, thin hair, so it was really easy. I was just like, it's fine.
Yeah, I feel like, well, you know, the American mentality here is very like, well, fuck everything. Like, I'll go and do my own. Like, no one tell me what to do. So I think that's a big part of like what's holding us back right now. Well,
what's the mood? That's my new favorite question. What's the mood? Like, yeah. I mean, with you and your like community, I guess.
Well, I'm in Portland right now, and it's also pretty chill. I think most people here are, they're more proactive, aware of everything. So, you know, I've seen most of my neighbors like keeping inside, and people here are very, there's a lot of homebodies, so it's not hard to just be like, hey, stay at home, have a drink, like do your thing. Yeah, so it's nice to be in a community where people are already doing that and supporting that. I guess like the downside of everything, right, is like being in the creative industry is like it's a lot of people are losing jobs, and like I know me personally, I've had to say no to a lot of animation work because there just isn't a way for me to like put a team together. But it is what it is.
But how about you personally? Like, are you the kind of person that stays at home and is like a homebody, like you say? Are you quite used to working from home and chilling on your own? So
yeah, so
because I am as well.
Literally, yeah. Like I've worked from home the majority of my career. So it's just kind of like, going back to like the old days, which is like good and bad at the same time, because it's like I've grown to really love working in a studio with other people and being able to have that like back and forth. I think that's just part of like my creative process. I don't really enjoy being alone and sitting with my thoughts anymore. Like I think I used to be like that when I was younger. I was very much like, I'm in my cave, like don't bother me.
I'm in my space.
I know
what you mean, but I also think that that for a lot of people, and to some extent myself, like being isolated allows for a sense of peace, which then kind of brings, I guess, I don't even think calling it creativity is right. I think it's just acceptance. Like when you're alone, you're not doing anything for anyone else, so you aren't judged. And I feel like that maybe that is allowing people to do the shit they want to do, like like bake a loaf of, like make a cake, or like like do some knitting, like because although I think it's cool to do whatever you want, like some people's like network of friends, I guess maybe, or even just people you know might judge you for doing things that are lame or like boring or anything but going out. So maybe like that sense of, maybe that lack of judgment has allowed people to do more stuff.
I think that's a
which
good
is
point. Yeah,
like led to just, yeah, like there's so many people I know, for example, like friends of mine that live and work in London in like a really corporate situation.
Yeah.
The last people I would ever expect to be like crafty, and then they're sending me pictures of things they've made, whether that's whether that's a cute outfit or something to eat.
Yeah.
And I just think it's been really fun seeing that side of people like during this time. I think it's been quite refreshing.
I like it too. I think it's good. It's good for everyone to explore that part of themselves. And I think there is that sense of like, oh, I'm by myself, nobody's watching. That probably energizes people too. So I think,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know, man. It's like, it's a time of stress, but it's also exciting to me. And maybe because I'm that kind of person that has grown up in situations where I've had to figure shit out. When I get into the zone, I'm like, okay, I've been here before. This is very familiar, and I know what to do. But I do understand that there are a lot of people that, you know, they're still going through the grief process, which is fine. You know, like it is.
Yeah, and I think that your output is really defined by your context as well. So if you're in an apartment that's yours and you've got space, that's really nice. If you have a partner and you're living with them and, you know, it's springtime, that's also really nice. And like if you're living with housemates and your room is kind of small, that's quite shit.
Yeah.
So maybe it's also about like how much physical space you have. Like if you're confined to quite a small space, that's really hard. But if you have a balcony, for example, like the currency of having an outdoor space in the city at the moment has never been greater, I guess. I mean, that's how it is here in Copenhagen anyway. And I mean, Copenhagen's quite a really small city compared to somewhere like LA where you are, right? Or London.
Yeah, I'm in Portland actually.
Portland, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, when I was in LA, I was, and I don't think everyone feels this way, but me specifically, I was craving the outdoors because LA's getting to that point where it's like San Francisco or New York, where like the space that you have is so tiny that you spend the majority of your life either in your car or outside doing things. So when you take that away, that's like 70% of people's lives. Then I can understand that like you start to freak out. For everyone that just hopped on, this is Faith Robinson down below. She's chilling with me today. She's founder of Entry Level Activist. She's going to be answering all of our questions. So if anyone has a cue at any time while we're chatting away, drinking wine, we'll both see it. So just click the question mark down below. Or, you know, if you got a big ass question, just put it in the comments. Like, we're ready for all
I love this. Because over the last couple of weeks I've been using quarantine time to try and develop my professional network, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Like a lot of people have.
Yeah.
So I've just been like basically just calling or zooming people that I think are interesting. And I guess that's what we're doing now, right? And it's kind of cool. Yeah, it's kind of cool to just experience what a super informal Instagram live can be, because I think when you're watching or all of there's kind of like, I feel like the expectations for Instagram live are lowering the more that people use it. And I think that that's really, really good, because then more people will do it. And if you have conversations, like all the conversations I've had with people have been super interesting and like so relevant to share. So that's what I kind of like about this, because we've kind of like messaging each other for a couple of months now, right? Haven't we?
Yeah, it's been a bit since last year. But I think like what attracted me to what you were doing is like the way that you talk about it, but also the way that you're visualizing the information that you're sharing on entry level, I think really speaks to me as a creative person. And also, I like that the way that you're sharing information really is about getting tiny bits of things and really just sitting with them before you go out and share. Because the thing that, and we'll talk about this, is like, it's really difficult for people that want to jump into activism to understand where to start, because there's so much information constantly being bombarded on you, even outside of Instagram. Like, even if you are a person that watches television or gets news sent to your phone or is looking through emails, I think like one of the main questions that we got from people is like, in your opinion, where's the best place to start? Like, you have decided that you want to not just talk about things, but you want to be a little more proactive in like sharing this type of stuff with your friends or family. Like, where's a good place to start?
I think that what you said about being overwhelmed with information that really resonates with me, and I feel like that's one of the big almost like one of the big challenges for our time, outside of the context of activism, but just in life and in culture, is like, if you have an independent opinion about something, you can go into a digital space like Instagram and have that immediately undermined, and that kind of feels a bit shit, and it makes you feel it really breaks your confidence in what your beliefs are. So I guess I was like experiencing that, and you know, really trying to be really aware of the anxiety I feel around world issues, let's say. And I think that you can feel more nervous about things or more worried about things when you don't fully understand them. So I guess like the project itself on entry level activism is mostly about giving people a bit more confidence, because as soon as you understand what a word means, for example, it means that you might be able to be a bit more like willing to partake in a discussion or a debate about that word or something in that context. And that's why on the Instagram feed it's a lot about defining individual words, and you know, like we all take part in these conversations or hear conversations about certain topical things, but how often do we stop and actually dig into like the root of what that means? It's not very often. And also, when I started the project last year, there weren't many like opportunities to actually talk about your feelings when it comes to anxiety around world issues. Like, there really wasn't that many spaces, and I think there are now, especially on places like Instagram, which is where I spend most of my time. But I just think that there's a lot of work to be done around being humble around what you don't know, and actually you can get quite a lot of strength and confidence from just being honest about the fact that sorry, actually I don't know what that word means, can you just tell me? I wish people would do that more, because I think we like fluff it out or like fake it in conversations when we feel like we're supposed to know what that means. And I guess I guess I just wanted to address that, because you're not stupid if you don't fully understand what carbon offsetting means.
Totally.
It's really, really complicated.
I love that you say that, because I think there's power in admitting that you don't know something, because it doesn't make you dumb. It's just that like you're acknowledging that, like, all right, I'm super interested in this thing. Like, let's get to know more about this. Like, open up the doors. And I think that for me, that's the vibe that I got from the account that you started, because like I said, the way that you talk about things, it's not about like, you know, you're stupid because you don't understand this stuff. It's like, hey, this is a word, you've seen it a lot, but have you actually researched to see what that means before you have a conversation?
and to try and build a space or a community of people that isn't going to judge you for not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
I think is definitely still like a big ambition, because like a big part of entry-level activists is just about recognizing that, you know, there's so many of us that could never identify with being an activist or introduce yourself as like, hi, I'm Faith, I'm an activist. I mean, I would never do that, but that doesn't mean that you can't take part in activism. Like that doesn't mean that you can't be in the climate strike or be vegan or even, you know, be on the front line of something. So it's just about, I just think there's a lot of potential in harnessing the positive change that people, that big group of people really want to do, but might feel like it's not for them, or they're not, you know, it's almost like the idea of imposter syndrome, right? Like it's like, oh, I'm not an activist. But actually, if you're doing like one day, like if you're doing meat-free Mondays, or if you did Veganuary, or if you know, if you say no to plastic bottles, then that is entry-level activism. So it's like, it's kind of just about recognizing the small things that you can do to start your journey. And I really believe that more of us, if not all of us, have already started this activism journey in some way. And that could just be from learning something like, you know, learning something about something negative about your lifestyle, like, oh, I buy from fast fashion. If you learn that that's bad, then you've started. That's your entry level position. And the more you learn, the more confident you might be to actually take a stand on something, which is what the world needs.
Yeah, I think it's good to let people know that they can identify with being an activist. I think activism, kind of like people that are afraid to call themselves artists, go through this thing where it's like, I might not be good enough to call myself this title. And I think like it's worth expressing to people that like, if there's a part of you that wants to do the work and make the effort to become something, or become, you know, whatever it is that you want to do, you shouldn't feel ashamed to own a title just because you see other people that are like, you know, giving days and months and years to activism, whatever you believe activism is, and are like, you know, starting marches and doing whatever. I think it's nice to say like, hey, even you making the decision to start recycling, to be more conscious about the things that you're putting into your everyday life, that is still activism. Like it's still okay for you to be like, hey, this is the type of person and the type of life that I want to live. I think that that's so important.
Yeah, I really like that. And to that point, I think that's why some of the work I do resonates with a younger audience, because a lot of us, when we're in our youth or when we're starting in our career, like that feeling resonates. It's like, oh, I can't be a manager, or I can't be a art director, or when really you just have to put yourself in the position to do that. And it's, I think it's the same with activism. And another point to what you just said is that I know a lot of, or I've read and seen a lot of people who I would see as an activist really reject that title, or reject that identifying with that word. And I think that's pretty interesting too, because, you know, and that's part of the project, like what is activism actually, and why is it something you have to earn, or is it something that someone else, that you can't self-prescribe, or you know, does it mean that you're, you know, physically giving your body or your life to a cause on the front line, or is it something that you can do on Instagram? I just think there's lots and lots of ways of seeing the act of positive change, and I'd like, and I guess like I'm kind of a researcher at heart anyway, so the project of entry-level activism is kind of just trying to see what people around the world or different people think about that, because everyone seems to have their own thoughts on it, and I really don't want the word activism to be diluted into something that's just a marketing word, which is kind of another area where the project came from. It was like last year, brand activism was like a massive trend in advertising and marketing.
Yeah.
And I kind of recognized that, and then thought, well, these brands obviously want to address us in a way that recognizes the fact that we see ourselves as young activists.
Mm-hmm.
But lots of us don't, actually. And lots of us don't know what a protest really is. They might see pictures of it on Instagram, but they don't know how it feels. or they might, they might not feel like they're allowed to go to a protest because they don't see themselves as an activist. So the more that activism becomes mainstream and pop culture, I think the more interesting this conversation gets.
Yeah. We have a question. It says, how do you make the step from being a part of an activist community online to putting those practices in daily life, IRL support system?
Yeah, I think that's such a good question, because, and I want to address this question through the topic of like sound.
Mm-hmm.
So someone recently asked me, like, on Instagram or online, we all have a voice, right? But if that voice isn't physically ever heard, then do you still have a voice? Like, in other words, do you have to be in a community physically to influence change in some way? And for me, with the entry-level activist project, that's really interesting because I have a bit of a language barrier here as well. In Copenhagen, I moved here to Copenhagen, and there's lots of local grassroots activism groups, but I feel like I can't access them because I don't speak fluent Danish. So that digital barrier is one thing. Cultural barriers is another.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, outside of the Corona context, there is usually a monthly opportunity to strike for the climate. And if that means being in a group of school kids and you feeling like you're a little bit too old to be there, then that's kind of fine. Like, I can kind of I can be part of that community without having integrated into it. So to answer the question, I'm really still working on that personally. But I think that you can use Instagram to find local communities, and then you just have to have the confidence to be there physically, and that's hopefully what entry-level activists can give you, so that at least if you know what the words mean, you feel like you're entitled to be part of the fight there. Yeah. Walk
the walk, talk the talk. All right, I have a couple questions that are coming in. Who are people that you look up to that are practicing activism? Like, names.
Yeah.
Past and present.
I think that's a really interesting question, because there are people I look up to for their activism, but there are people that I can't really relate to, because just like so many of us, I live a really comfortable life where I don't really have to fight for any of the things I want or need. So, I'm basically, I'm not oppressed. And most people who I would define as an activist are in some way oppressed, whether that's because of their gender, because of their race or their religion, or just because of their beliefs, which may be seen as radical in the context they're in. So that's why I would never say I'm an activist, because I'm not on the front line of anything, and I don't need to be. I've chosen my cause rather than it choosing me. Yeah. And a lot of the people I see as activists find that term really reductive, because they've not chosen to be fighting for their livelihood. It's been put on them. So one of those people is someone called Nina Gualinga. She's half Swedish and half So I think her father's from Sweden and her mother's from from the Amazon rainforest.
Oh wow.
Which puts her in this really interesting position of being able to communicate with the global north, but being part of indigenous culture.
Yeah.
So she can kind of translate some of the frontline struggles she's going with people like me, and all of the people that follow her. I think she has like 30 or 40,000 followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
So that's someone I would definitely look to as an activist. And I think especially people of indigenous culture need more of a platform, or they need more of a stage. They need more people to hear, because the oppression they experience is so more intense than anything we can relate to. So
totally.
I think people like that can make you feel really humble. And that's very much like part of the spirit of Entry Level Activist as a project. Like you said, like admitting that you don't know something,
Mm-hmm.
or recognizing that you have a good life, even though you're striking for the climate or something like that.
Yeah. I really appreciate that you bring that up, especially as a white woman. And I think because there is this sort of culture, and it's prominent here in Portland, and I'm sure it's like this in other predominantly white cities that are considered progressive. There's this level of like, okay, I'm a vegan, like go green, activist person. So let me shame you for not being like, without actually stopping to consider that some of the people that they're shaming are, like you said, people that did not choose to be in the position that they're in. It's just that they happen to not have the ability to make these particular choices. It's not that they don't care about the planet. It's just that their relationship, their economic situation, all plays a part of them being able to, participate in a lot of these spaces. So I think that's really great that you bring that up. We have a question here is, how much of acquainting yourself with key terms also becomes the work of highlighting tokenism? I think that's a really good question.
Me too. I think that's a really good question, because it kind of digs into the tension around like activism as pop culture. Like that basically is like, I'm a hashtag activist.
Yeah.
And the question is kind of like, why is that problematic, I guess. So if I think that tokenism, or like the idea of a buzzword in activism, is like a coin with two sides, one negative and one positive, because the more people that hear a buzzword, generally the more people that get interested in it.
Yeah.
But the more people that then use it incorrectly, the more like warped the terminology, and then possibly a whole movement can become. And then the wrong people can co-opt a movement and use that as a token for like virtue signaling or something that isn't really real. So I guess that one of the objectives with like defining simple words is to try and strip that word of all of its buzzword status, of all of its marketing use, of all of its tokenism, and just try and like reduce it to a really simple, neutral term that isn't swayed by politics, or tries to steer clear of like deep nuance. And then I think if everyone can agree on what something means, basically, that might help you be more critical when you see it in the wrong context, or when something is becoming a hashtag when it really shouldn't. So actually, a lot of the words that I choose to define are words that fall victim of tokenism.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
And I think it seems like in general, when you are maneuvering through, like we said earlier in this conversation, the bombardment of information, and like being able to sift through that and see like what's good and what's just like plain bullshit. I think it's like you being able to identify with yourself, like, I'm actually going to do the work to figure out what's the real deal or not. Because honestly, like, if you step into this space, you should feel like some sort of responsibility to be like, hey, I'm going to do the work to figure out like what's actually going on here. And I think that makes that will like level you up, if anything. For me, it's doing everything that you can to be educated about these things. Like that should make you feel like so good and empowered. And then you'll be able to go and feel good about having those conversations with your friends.
Yeah, totally. I love what you just said. I feel like it really addresses some of the big challenges with the work on that project. Like, who am I to define a word in a way? I mean, with a lot of the words that we make these posts about, I just do like, maybe an hour's worth of reading and research. It's usually coming from something like Wikipedia. And then the use, kind of like giving a case study of something helps to contextualize it.
Yeah.
But I'm becoming more and more aware of the fact that some words I really do not have the right to define. Like, and that's why I'm trying more to collaborate with people who do know, who should have the right to define it. So, for example, today is the first day of Ramadan,
mm-hmm.
and I don't practice in that faith or that religion or any, and I don't know anything about that actually, but I wanted to do the research and learn a bit more about that culture, because a lot of my work and a lot of my messaging is around asking people to get outside of their own echo chambers.
Yeah.
Like to jump into a space that humbles you because you know so little about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I started making a post defining Ramadan, and then I was like, what the fuck? I'm literally not. How dare I think I'm entitled to define something I know nothing about?
Yeah.
So like your point around responsibility is really serious, and hopefully like with collaborative conversations like this, it becomes more distributed, and it's truly not about like me or I think this, I think that. And I think that my work experience, like as a moderator, like produce basically, like, so my background is in basically producing conferences, which means that I have to have both sides of an argument and then put it together in a way that people can listen and learn from.
Yeah.
So I think that skill has really helped me with the project I'm doing now, because you just have to stay neutral, and sometimes staying neutral means, sometimes if you're neutral and you don't have a point of view, it doesn't really catch people's opinions. But what I've really liked about entry-level activism is that just defining words is quite accessible to people. You don't necessarily have to agree or disagree. It's just, it sparks a conversation, and then that's the debate, and the debate is the juiciest part of all of it. That's where we all learn.
Right. It's good to start the conversation.
Yeah, and it's also really good to disagree with things and, and learn how to disagree with people.
I love disagreeing with people. It makes me learn about what else is out there. You can't just like stick to your one POV, because then you're never going to grow.
Yeah, exactly. And I really think, especially on Instagram, there's a lot of people that kind of just self-congratulate one another and like hype each other in the same and then everyone gets this false sense of like assertiveness or being sure of their point of view, and really they haven't stepped outside of their group. And I think that's the thing about Instagram that frustrates me, I guess.
Yeah, it's the internet, because you can also you can decide, right, to stay in the circle jerk because it's a comfortable place. Everyone's going to cheer you on no matter what. But the scarier thing is to get out of your comfort zone and see if anyone else agrees with what you're saying and what they have to say. And I think hearing what other people have to say is the scary part for a lot of people.
Yeah.
All right. We got 2 more questions left that I'm taking from DMs. But if anyone else wants to pop one, down here, then I got you. Otherwise, we got two more. Okay, what are companies or brands, in your opinion, who are practicing ethical production? And I think this is more, I'm guessing this is a fashion-based question, because I know that's something that you pick up a lot.
Yeah, I guess. So a lot of the people that come to entry-level activists come from fashion space.
Got it.
And I think that's because of the kind of collaborations I do, and also on the page.
Yeah.
And also because I work in the fashion industry. I mean, what's really, really complicated about fashion and ethics and sustainability at the moment is that, and it comes kind of back to the words that we use, which kind of goes back to the practice of the project. So like 2 days ago, a big list came out of the 250 most transparent fashion brands in the world. And they use this word transparent. And that means that the company has shared details about, as many details as it can about its whole supply chain. So where things have traveled from, what crop, what pesticide has been used for the cotton, what kind of cultural family has dyed this product, all the way from A to B, which is like a crazy huge job.
Yeah. Really,
really hard to do. And the number one brand on this list was H&M Group. So for some people, the most ethical fashion brand or most ethical value chain in fashion is H&M, according to this list.
Yeah.
But it really depends how you define ethical or sustainable, because you know, a lot of people argue that H&M as a fast fashion business model can never be ethical because it produces so much stuff that completely undermines its ethical credentials. So, you know, on the one hand, I really commend a brand like H&M for doing the work to make sure that its supply chain is visible.
Yeah.
And for a brand that size, that's a really big deal, and that should be commended. It's a big investment from them. But on the other hand, I personally don't see how a brand that big can ever be described as ethical or sustainable, because they contribute to a kind of throwaway society of clothes, which is bad for the planet and the people who make the stuff as well. So I mean, I'm trying to shop at super independent brands basically, and if possible, trying to like shout out brands that people I know or actually run or make. So I'm loving, there's this fantastic kind of like Indian streetwear brand called Nor Black Nor White, and they're based in Delhi.
Cool.
And they like make outfits for like Major Lazer and MIA and stuff like that. And their whole practice is super ethical as far as I'm concerned. So I think that you should, if you're interested in ethical supply chains, you should look at smaller brands or independent brands.
Cool. I think that answers both of these questions. The last question is like, do you, at this point of the project, like, do you consider yourself an activist? And do you think that you'll get to the point, if you don't consider yourself an activist, you know, that you can call yourself that? I think like a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah.
We talked about at the top of this convo, but
I really liked your analogy to artists as well. Like, what makes someone feel confident enough to present themselves as an artist, as opposed to a creative or a designer or whatever. I think that the word activist is really loaded with struggle or like with pain. And personally, I don't live a life where I am like oppressed to a point where I'm fighting for something to that kind of essential depth in terms of like who I am or my soul. I guess, and I think that people who are activists are people who are on the front line of things. Like, people who are in policy fighting for gender equality, or people who are literally you know, in the Amazon like physically fighting people with their bodies to make sure that this particular area of land isn't taken from them. So because I live where I live in Denmark, in Copenhagen, in the global north, I don't think I could be an activist the way I live now.
Yeah.
But maybe if the thing about climate activism or like environmentalism is that we're all in that together, you know.
Right.
Everyone's at stake in a way, even though that the risk isn't evenly distributed. So yeah, like maybe I could be an activist, but you know, I'm honestly I'm not disciplined enough for that. Like I'm not vegan, and I do still buy new things, and you know, I don't shop local, and I don't live a waste-free life. So no, I don't think I am an activist, and maybe I will be in the future, but being an activist is really, really hard. And I just don't think I'm there. I mean, I just don't think I don't think my livelihood is at stake enough for me to be that extreme yet.
Yeah.
And that's what entry-level activist is about. I know there's a lot of people like me who, you know, we live these really comfortable lives, but that doesn't mean that we don't want to make change. And that is being an entry-level activist in a way, you know.
I love it.
So yeah, kind of it's ongoing, you know. It's like a practice for everyone.
I like that. Well, that's a perfect place to end this conversation. Thank you, Faith, so much.
So fun.
I know. Thank you so much for joining us and, like, you know, having a little drink together. I think that what we talked about today, I hope that everyone will go home wherever you're at. If you're just like, you know, chilling in your quarantine zone. Remember that you don't have to be 110% when it comes to activism. If you can just start something really small today or during this week or at some point this year, don't feel discouraged. We're all entry level right now. We entry level up in here. Faith, let the people know where to find you and where to follow everything that you're doing.
Yeah, so basically it's just entry-level activism. Entry-level activist, which is at the moment just an Instagram page. But my ambitions for it is to turn it into like a charity or a non-profit or a foundation that can, you know, receive funding to help specifically young people learn about stuff. So yeah, and that's all it is really. It's that simple, super accessible, and you know, making friends with you and Heysisworld and different communities is like what we're all about. Like a non-financial exchange is a nice way of doing things. So
totally. Yeah. Well, thank you girls so much. Have a beautiful rest of your evening, and everybody else, I'll see you next week.